Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we have some pretty big news for Suicide Squad with the new weekly developer update which came out earlier today. Now this fixes a good amount of the issues in my opinion with the game. In fact, I was working on a video which I'm not sure if I'll still end up doing because a lot of the stuff I've talked about in that is now being changed and fixed, so I'll have to redo a lot of that. But essentially, a lot of changes are happening with episode 2. Okay, in this week's developer update, we are going to show some of the gameplay changes we have planned for Season 1, Episode 2, from looking at both our internal data and from listening to community sentiment. We've worked on a series of improvements that we believe will make for a better experience in terms of hunting for new gear, fighting Brainiac's forces, and overall quality of life. Below is a list of several changes we plan to implement when Episode 2 releases next month. Infamy tier rework. Let's talk about Infamy sets, notorious items, and loot rollout. Our intent with the distributing of Infamy set tiers and the notorious items across our mastery levels was to have a more general onboarding to the increasing complexity of the Infamy sets and build configuration. I'm going to kind of summarize this, and if you want to go into a lot more detail, you can do so. I will put a link to this in the description. But essentially, if you've played the game, you know that with the Infamy levels, at a certain level, you are able to access the Tier 2 set and the Tier 3 set and the Tier 1 set. Instead, now all of these sets are going to be available from Mastery 1. And on top of this, they are now going to be changing to where all of the tiers are good. Because previously, the idea that they had was that Tier 3 would be the best, and Tier 1 and 2 would kind of introduce you to more elements or whatever. This will help to make there be a lot more diversity in the gameplay and builds and better variety with it, because basically by having one be definitively better, you're just making it to where why would you not use that? Okay, so they're flattening the power, all right? They're also introducing new grades of mastery items. With the flattening of the Infamy set tiers, we want to make sure there's still something to chase in the later master levels. That's why we're introducing an additional 4 master grades for a total of 5 that Infamy and Notorious items can drop with. Each grade will be more powerful than the last, and you can expect the highest Master 5 to only drop from the very high mastery levels. Essentially, the default weapons that you have in the game now are Mastery 1 weapons. These are just going to be souped up versions of the same gear. There's also a completely new type of item that will exist for seemingly all of the items. One piece of feedback we've heard since launch is that players didn't have enough reasons to play the Mayhem missions after beating them for the first time. We think we have the right reward for you to fight for. Introducing corrupted notorious items. These twisted pieces of gear have been subjected to the Elseworld's corruption, changing their unique augment to provide a warped and seriously powerful version of the weapon. So essentially, corrupted weapons and items are going to just have different abilities that are much more powerful. So, for example, they talked about the Firefly Firestorm grenade. The standard version of this grenade sets all enemies hit on fire and increases the radius of your next grenade by 50% for each enemy you burn, up to a maximum of 200%. So 200% increased range, right? The corrupted version burns every enemy hit, but instead of increasing your blast radius, the damage of your next grenade will be buffed by 200% for each enemy you burn, up to a maximum of 1000%. So as you can tell, these corrupted versions of weapons are going to be much, much more powerful. And because of the fact that it's just simply giving us extra abilities that are different abilities, this will add a lot more build variety once again, because there are going to be a lot more items in the game. Even though they are technically both Firefly Firestorm grenades, one of them is going to have a completely different ability and might work better for your specific build. Even though I'd suspect the corrupted versions to be better most of the time. Now, they're also introducing some weapon breakdown mechanics. We're really happy to announce that with the launch of Episode 2, you'll be able to break down items straight from the Bat Pod drop in the mission reward screen. This is really good, and I don't know why this wasn't already a thing, because if you go to the mailbox, or I think it's actually the care packages, when you open those, you're able to break those down. So I don't know why this wasn't already a thing, but better late than never, I guess. Now, they also talk about mutators, okay? And essentially, they just go on to say that, hey, we understand that what they did didn't exactly make a lot of sense. The reason they had things like the frenzy immunity, it was basically just to try and encourage you to make new builds, but instead, it basically people to not be able to use certain builds. So instead of weakening certain stuff, they're going to be improving certain stuff for different episodes with gameplay bonuses. Each mutator in episode 2 will give you a window of opportunity to take advantage of its effect, and the gameplay benefit is something we want you to be able to build around. We don't expect you to build around all 6, but 2 to 3 should be able to be done. A couple of new mutators to illustrate this new approach are Desperation and Extra Fries. Desperation boosts your damage by 75% for every 10% of your shield missing. So, for example, with your full shield gone, you're going to be doing 700% more damage. This incentivizes a high-risk, high-reward playstyle that works great with the Bizarro Undeath Ray and Hot Potato Grenade. Extra Fries grants players 1 combo for every critical hit on a burning enemy, allowing fire builds to get off to a blazing start. This, in my opinion, is a very important and very good change, because instead of discouraging you from using certain builds, they're going to encourage you to try new stuff out, which should have been how it was from the start. But the really important thing about this whole update is that it truly feels like they're actually listening now. And I do think that they've been listening all along. I think that it's just a matter of trying to actually implement stuff and how long it takes to implement changes based off of feedback. Now, I'm hoping that this contributes to better actual story missions and more variety in actual missions as well. But we do have some other stuff, including new incursion mission mechanics. Let's move on to our incursion missions. Our original intent with these was to give you all a known foundation of activity mechanics, enemy types, infusion types, etc. And your build would provide the variety. This is how the game essentially works in general, but the issue with this is that if you do just find one build that you really like, then every single mission is going to feel the exact same. And to improve on this to where you kind of are going to be wanting to constantly change your stuff, with the launch of episode 2, Lex Luthor has done an analysis of the enemies in each of the incursion encounters and will essentially identify weaknesses. With those weaknesses, you'll be able to have builds that do a lot more in those missions. So for example, the Funny Pages mission will take double damage. In the Funny Pages mission, burning enemies will take double damage from all sources when burning. Now that is going to encourage you to use burning stuff for that mission, and in Seaside Amusement, it seems the squad's critical hits will deal 150% more damage. So you're going to want to have stuff that improves your chances of critical hits. So this is important, but I do think that even with this, they still need to come out with at least 2 new types of missions episode, and on top of that new mission types, they also need to be coming out with at least 2 to 3 story missions per episode. It does seem that they're going to be having at least 2 new story missions for episode 2. We don't know much other than that, and there could be more, but that's all we know right now with the actual number of story missions. They've also added more crafting recipes. All of the legendary items you can find in Finite Crisis and episode 1 will now be able to be crafted. And you will also be able to craft master versions. These are just random though, so you won't have, so it's not a confirmation that you're going to be getting a master one every single time, or that you can just choose it. For the higher grade of the mastery items, like 2 and through 5, you'll still have to get them in the Elseworld missions, which I think is a good trade-off. And I know a lot of people have been getting stuck around Mastery 100, and especially on anything higher than that. But with the introduction of having much more powerful gear, much more options to improve for specific missions, as well as just the episodes in general giving you different bonuses, I think that you're going to be seeing a lot more people reaching mastery 700 and stuff. Now, they've also decreased PROMETHIUM cost for missions. They've also, as well as adding more invasion levels. If you don't know what invasion levels are, it's essentially like once you get enough enemies killed and stuff in Metropolis, you can increase the difficulty to an invasion level. And now there's going to be 3 more because people found Metropolis to be a bit too easy, especially compared to the mastery missions, which I 100% agree. Those are really easy, and you'll be able to get some extra rewards from the actual in-between mission stuff now. All of these changes will be made in the patch shortly before the launch of Episode 2. This will be the next patch for the game. We are eagerly looking forward to implementing these changes and hope you enjoy your time in the Elseworlds until then. Now, it also does confirm, even though we already knew, that Episode 2 is going to be releasing in May. Now, when exactly is it going to be releasing in May? Now, we know that each episode is going to be releasing 6 weeks apart. Now, Episode 1 of Season 1 released March 28th. Because of this, we know 6 weeks would be exactly May 9th. Now, that also lines up with it being Thursday. It's also possible, though, that it's slightly off of 6 weeks. It could be the 7th as well as the 14th. I would 100% suspect that it will be the 9th, with the actual update itself possibly dropping on the 8th, or possibly dropping on the 7th or the 9th, with maybe the update itself being with the new episode releasing on the 10th. Anyways, that is going to be it for the video. Real quick though, before I do end it, I just wanted to let everyone know that there's going to be a lot less videos for a little bit as I look into ways of improving the quality of the channel, especially with stuff like thumbnails, as well as just what's actually in the videos themselves, because the quality is not exactly the best right now, and I really want to help improve that. If you have any feedback about the channel in general, I'd really appreciate it if you left a comment below and let me know what you think needs to be improved. Anyways, I'll see you guys all next time.